My older sister begged me to carry her baby, then walked away at 7 months saying she needed to focus on herself. I had the baby alone and gave her my last name. My older sister Willa couldn't conceive. She found out at 28, and it wrecked her. She and her husband Glenn tried everything for years. None of it worked. When Willa turned 32, she sat me down at her kitchen table and asked if I'd carry a baby for them. Said I was the one person she trusted completely. Said it would mean everything to her. Said she'd handle every medical expense, that Glenn was fully on board, that they'd already consulted a doctor about logistics. The baby would be biologically theirs, her egg, his sperm, me just carrying it to term. I was 27, single, healthy, and loved my sister more than anyone alive, so I said yes. Barely thought it over for a full day before agreeing. My mom Alma cried when we told her, called it the most selfless thing she'd ever heard, said she was proud of us both. The process dragged on a while. 2 rounds failed, the third one worked. When the test came back positive, Willa screamed loud enough that Glenn came sprinting in from the garage convinced something had gone wrong. The early months were good. Willa showed up to every appointment, held my hand during ultrasounds, cried each time we heard the heartbeat. Glenn was there for most of those too, brought me food afterward, checked in throughout the week. I was sick through nearly the entire first trimester, and Willa stayed over at my apartment twice just to take care of me. It felt like we were building something real together. Then around month 4, Willa stopped showing up to appointments. Said work was hectic, promised she'd make the next one. Didn't. Glenn started coming alone, quiet in a way that put me on edge. I asked if everything was okay, and he said things at home were complicated. I asked Willa straight out and she told me to stop worrying, that she and Glenn just needed space. By month 5, Willa told me they were separating. Said it had nothing to do with the baby, everything to do with not being able to stand each other anymore. Said the plan stayed the same, they'd still co-parent, even living apart. Said plenty of people manage that. I believed her, because I had no other choice. By 6 months, Willa had filed for divorce. Glenn moved across town. Stopped coming to appointments entirely. Stopped texting altogether. Willa came to one more ultrasound and spent the whole time on her phone. When the doctor announced it was a girl, Willa glanced up briefly and said, "Cool," and that was the entire reaction. I went home that night, sat on my bathroom floor, and stared at the wall for a long time. 6 months pregnant with a baby that was starting to feel unwanted by anyone but me. At 7 months, Willa called. Said she'd been doing a lot of thinking, wasn't sure she was in any place to be a mother right now. Said the divorce was draining her dry, that she needed time to focus on herself. I asked what that meant for the baby. She said maybe I could keep her for a while, until things settled. I asked what a while actually meant. She didn't know. I called Glenn. No answer. Called again the next day, and he finally picked up. Told me he wasn't in any position to take a baby either. Said the divorce was costing him everything, that he could barely cover rent. Said he'd assumed Willa would handle it. I told him Willa just informed me she wasn't handling anything. He went quiet, then apologized, said this wasn't how he'd planned things going. I called my mom. Alma told me to give Willa time, that she was just overwhelmed. I told her Willa didn't sound overwhelmed, she sounded finished. Alma said I was being harsh, that my sister was going through the hardest stretch of her life. I told her I was 7 months pregnant with a baby I'd agreed to carry purely as a favor. And both people who'd asked me for that favor had just walked away from it. Alma said she'd talk to Willa. Either she never did, or it changed absolutely nothing. I had the baby completely alone. My friend Josie drove me to the hospital and stayed the entire time. Willa never showed. Glenn never showed. Alma arrived the next day, held the baby for 10 minutes, then asked if I'd discuss next steps with Willa. I told her there were no next steps. Told her the baby was mine now. Alma looked at me like I'd said something monstrous. Said that baby belonged to Willa, that I couldn't simply decide otherwise. I reminded her Willa had decided to leave her. I was the one who'd actually shown up. Alma called Willa right there in the hospital room. Willa told Alma she just needed more time. That's all she ever offered. More time, more time. I brought the baby home to my apartment and named her B. Set up a crib in my bedroom. Josie helped for the first 2 weeks. Everything after that I handled solo. A lawyer sorted out the paperwork, and since neither Willa nor Glenn contested anything, the whole process moved quicker than expected. Both signed off completely. That was 11 months ago. Then one day, I found her standing on my front step, holding a wrapped gift in silver paper with a white bow. I spotted her through the peephole before opening the door. Different hair, shorter now. She looked genuinely healthy in a way I hadn't seen in years, color in her face. None of that exhausted look she'd worn through the entire pregnancy. She smiled when I opened up. I didn't smile back. She asked if she could come in to talk. I let her. The words came out fast, rehearsed. Said she'd been drowning before, said she'd made terrible choices, said she was different now, said she wanted to be part of B's life. My hands started shaking, so I crossed my arms. I told her she doesn't get to vanish for nearly a year and then decide she's ready whenever it's convenient for her. Told her B was my daughter now, legally and in every sense that actually mattered. Willa started crying. Said she knew that. Said she wasn't trying to take B away, just wanted to know her. I told her she should have considered that before disappearing. She asked if she could at least see her, just for a minute. I said no. Told her she needed to leave. She set the gift down on the step and walked back to her car. I watched her drive off, then picked up the present and threw it straight in the trash. I called Josie the second the door closed. My hands shook so hard I could barely hold the phone steady. She showed up 40 minutes later with Chinese food and a bottle of wine. B was on her activity mat kicking at the dangling toys. Josie sat down beside her, looked up at me, asked what happened. I told her everything. The therapy talk, the job, the apartment, how healthy Willa looked, all the crying. Josie listened without cutting in. When I finished, she asked what I was actually scared of. Pointed out the adoption was legal, final, both Willa and Glenn had signed off, I had full custody. So what was the fear? I sat down on the couch. Realized I was terrified Willa would somehow disrupt the life B and I had built together. Our routine. The way B reaches for me when she's tired. The way she laughs at my silly faces. I was scared that some biological connection might end up outweighing 11 months of me being the only parent B had ever known. Josie squeezed my hand, said B already knows exactly who her mom is. I wanted desperately to believe her. 3 days later, my phone buzzed mid-nap time. A text from Willa asking how B was doing. I deleted it without responding. Next day, a photo of a little pink dress, said she'd seen it and thought of B. Deleted that too. The text kept coming every few days, sometimes daily. Therapy updates. Questions about B's sleep schedule. Request to see her. Just once. Just an hour, please. My phone started giving me anxiety. Every buzz tightened my stomach. 2 weeks after that first doorstep visit, I heard knocking while feeding B lunch. Willa again. I didn't answer. She knocked harder, called my name. B started crying, frightened by the noise. I picked her up and told Willa through the door she needed to stop if she came back again. I'd file for a restraining order. She returned 4 days later anyway. Same routine. I didn't answer. Just stood in the hallway holding B until she gave up and left. My mom called one Tuesday morning. Alma skipped hello entirely, launched straight into how Willa had shown up at her house in tears. Said, Willa is trying so hard and you won't even let her see B. Something hot rose in my chest. I reminded her Willa hadn't been there when I gave birth alone. Hadn't been there for the 3M feedings when exhaustion left me barely standing. Hadn't witnessed B's first smile, her first rollover, any of the million tiny moments that actually make up parenting. Willa made her choice walking away. Alma called me cruel. Said family forgives. Said I was keeping B from her real mother. I hung up, blocked her number, sat on the couch crying while B played with blocks on the floor nearby. Glenn called 2 weeks later. We met at a downtown cafe. Josie watched B. He told me he never actually wanted kids. The whole surrogacy idea had been entirely Willa's. He'd gone along because he loved her, hoped it might save the marriage. Once everything collapsed, he'd felt relieved I'd stepped in. He'd signed the papers and meant every word, but believed Willa genuinely regretted abandoning the baby. I asked if that was meant to make me feel better. He said no, just wanted me informed. I left my coffee untouched and walked out. The letter arrived on a Thursday. Official law firm letterhead. I opened it standing in my kitchen while B napped. My hands started shaking before I'd even finished the first paragraph. Willa was formally requesting supervised visitation with B. The letter cited her biological connection, improved mental health, stable job, and living situation. Formal, cold, and it made everything suddenly real in a way her texts and surprise visits hadn't managed. I called Constance, the lawyer who'd handled the adoption. She could meet the next day. Her office sat downtown in an old building with creaking floors. She read the letter slowly, set it down, folded her hands. Said my adoption stood legally solid, but family courts sometimes grant biological parents limited contact if they can demonstrate stability and that it serves the child's interest. Said if this went to court and I'd refused all contact, it might reflect poorly. Recommended one supervised visit at a family resource center. I hated every part of that advice but agreed. The family resource center was bright, toys scattered everywhere, artwork covering the walls. A counselor named Maria met us in the lobby, kind eyes, a clipboard. She led us into a room with a playmat, shelves of books and stuffed animals. Willa was already waiting. Stood when we entered, looking nervous. Smiled at B, who buried her face in my shoulder instead. Maria sat in a corner chair with her clipboard. I sat on the floor with B in my lap. Willa sat across from us, tried handing B a stuffed rabbit. B wouldn't take it. Willa started talking in this strange, high-pitched voice that didn't sound like her at all. After a few minutes, she reached out to hold her. I passed B over, every instinct screaming to hold on instead. B started crying instantly. Real, full-on crying, arms reaching back toward me. Willa tried soothing her, but it only made things worse. I took her back, and the crying stopped the instant she landed in my arms. Willa's eyes filled with tears. She apologized, first real apology since this whole thing began. Said she knew she'd wrecked everything, but she wanted to try anyway. Josie called 20 minutes later, like she had some kind of radar for these things. I told her about Willa's Instagram, about some guy named Nathan she'd mentioned. Josie went quite a beat, then said, I have B. Willa has Instagram posts. Not the same thing at all. Said B was real and mine and worth infinitely more than any curated, picture-perfect life. 2 weeks later, Constance called asking me in that afternoon. Her voice sounded off, tighter than usual. She was waiting with her partner Rosemary Barton, who handles custody cases. Willa's lawyer had filed a formal petition, not visits, not supervised time. Shared custody, alternating weekends and holidays. I stared at the words until they blurred together. Rosemary talked through building a case, showing I was B's primary psychological parent, that disrupting her routine would cause harm. All I could think was Willa wanted overnight stays with B, and I genuinely couldn't breathe. 3 days later, Alma called about Sunday dinner. I nearly declined, but she kept going on about missing B. Pulling into the driveway, I spotted Willa's car already parked there. Sat for a full minute just staring at it. Mom had set this up deliberately. I grabbed the diaper bag and carried B inside anyway. Willa sat at the kitchen table. Alma stood at the stove stirring something, turned and smiled like nothing was unusual. Started talking about family, about how sisters shouldn't fight in court. I put B in her high chair and asked Alma if she genuinely believed ambushing me would fix anything. She said she wasn't ambushing anyone, just trying to help. I reminded her she hadn't been there for the birth, hadn't been there for the 3 a.m. screaming, hadn't been there when exhaustion blurred my vision. Now she wanted to play peacemaker like none of that mattered. Alma's face flushed red, said that wasn't fair. I said her idea of fair was always choosing Willa's feelings over everything I'd actually lived through. Willa sat there silently, staring at her hands. I grabbed B and the diaper bag, drove home shaking so badly I had to pull over twice. The next morning, Glenn texted that Willa's lawyer wanted him backing her petition. He'd refused. Signed away his rights and meant it completely. Part of me felt relief, but he got to simply opt out while I was heading into court, fighting to keep the baby he'd helped create in the first place. The court mandated mediation. Rosemary said it was standard procedure before custody hearings. The mediator, Theo Flynn, older, maybe 60, gray hair, calm voice, explained the process we'd each get a chance to speak. Then he asked Willa to explain what she wanted. She talked about therapy, healing, being finally ready to mother, said she knew she'd made mistakes, but she'd changed. Said B deserved to know her biological mother. Then he turned to me. I said I'd been B's mother since birth. Carried her, delivered her alone, named her, woke up with her every single night without exception. Willa walked away the moment things got difficult and now wanted back in because the timing finally suited her. That isn't how parenting works. You don't leave and return whenever it becomes convenient. Between sessions, I asked Rosemary about obtaining Willa's medical records. A week later, she called back. Willa had been hospitalized twice, once during her 7th month of the pregnancy, once right after the divorce, both times for severe anxiety and depression, barely functional either time. Her therapist's notes flagged real concerns about her capacity to care for herself, let alone a baby. I read through it all after putting B to bed, page after page of clinical notes and medication lists. Something twisted in my chest. Not anger this time, something else entirely. Willa really had been drowning. It didn't excuse what she'd done, but it made her more human. Somehow, I hated that it did. The court approved a trial period of visitation 3 hours every Saturday at the Family Resource Center, supervised by a counselor. The first Saturday was rough. B crying, Willa trying too hard. We kept it up weekly for a month. B started crying before we even arrived, clinging to me at the door. During visits, she wouldn't warm to Willa at all, wouldn't touch the toys. The counselor noted B showed distress at every transition. Rosemary called it important evidence. Watching my daughter cry every single Saturday made me sick to my stomach. After the 4th visit, I asked Willa to meet me at a park instead. Just the two of us. No lawyers. No mediators. She agreed. We met on a Tuesday afternoon. Josie watching B. Willa was already on the bench when I arrived. I sat down and didn't waste time getting into it. Told her she needed to hear the full truth of what her leaving had done to me, going into labor terrified. Josie holding my hand because nobody else had bothered showing up. The first 2 weeks spent crying, struggling to figure out breastfeeding, falling in love with B while grieving the sister who'd promised this would be something we did together. I told her the mental health crisis didn't erase what had happened. She'd asked something enormous of me, then vanished entirely. Willa started crying for real. Said she'd been so terrified of becoming a bad mother that watching me with B made her realize exactly how much she'd missed out on. Said maybe she didn't deserve to be involved at all. I felt something unexpected stirring, not anger. Empathy. It didn't fix a single thing, but it helped me understand her a little better. I told her being scared didn't make her a bad person, but it also didn't mean she got to disrupt B's stability on her own timeline. B's needs came first. Always not Willa's schedule for being ready. Over the following 2 weeks, we met 3 more times with Theo. Something genuinely shifted between us. We stopped fighting, started actually communicating. Willa agreed to supervised visits without pushing for overnights until B got older. I agreed to bump visits to twice weekly, 2 hours each. I also agreed to let her attend some pediatrician appointments and milestone moments. We both committed to family therapy. Far from perfect, but something we could both genuinely live with. The formal agreement got signed 3 weeks later. Full custody remained mine. Supervised visitation twice weekly. If Willa missed visits or showed signs of instability, they'd stop immediately. I signed it, feeling relief and sadness tangled together. This was what our family had become: lawyers, mediators, formal contracts. I drove home, sat in the nursery watching B sleep. I knew I'd still be watching Willa carefully. The agreement was only paper. She'd walked away once already. The first official visit took place at Riverside Park. I arrived early, pushed B on the swings. Willa showed up right on time, carrying a small cooler bag. Pulled out cut strawberries, said she remembered me mentioning B loved them. Something shifted in my chest at that. Not quite forgiveness, but something close. She asked real, thoughtful questions: whether B had eaten lunch, what her nap schedule looked like, whether she still hated the blender's noise. Didn't try forcing anything. Let B approach in her own time. After 20 minutes, B crawled over and reached for the strawberries. Willa held one out. B took it, and Willa laughed a genuine laugh. First time she'd actually focused on what B needed instead of what she wanted to give. I drove to Alma's Sunday morning while Josie watched B. Didn't call ahead. Mom answered in her bathrobe, visibly surprised. We sat at the kitchen table. I told her that every time she'd pushed me toward giving Willa more chances, she'd made me feel like the problem, like protecting my own daughter was somehow selfish. Told her I'd needed my mother during the pregnancy, scared and alone, and she'd chosen Willa instead. Alma's eyes welled up. She reached across the table. I pulled my hands back. I wasn't finished. Told her she could love us both, but couldn't ask me to pretend everything was fine when it wasn't. Mom started crying for real then. Said she'd been trying to keep everyone together, terrified of losing both her daughters, that she'd handled it badly and was sorry. Said she should have been there for me more. Some of the anger in me loosened, just slightly. I told her I wanted to rebuild things between us, but differently this time. My relationship with Willa was mine alone to manage, and she needed to respect that boundary. Mom nodded, wiped her face, asked to see B soon. I said yes. That night I sat in the nursery rocker in the dark, thinking through everything: how I'd gone from a single 7-year-old to a mother at 28. Never planned any of it, but couldn't picture life without B now. She'd changed everything, made me stronger than I ever knew I could be. Things with Willa would probably stay complicated indefinitely, but I was learning I could protect B while still leaving room for Willa to keep trying. 6 months passed. Willa attended every single visit, never missed one, never showed up late. Learned B's favorite songs, which toys made her laugh, how to hold her when she got fussy. B started smiling whenever Willa arrived at the park, started reaching for her sometimes. I remained the one B called for when she fell or got scared. Still mama in every way that genuinely mattered. But watching them together, I could see that some connection to Willa might actually benefit B as she got older. Our family stayed messy, fractured, held together by legal agreements and careful boundaries. But it was functioning, one visit at a time, one day at a time. And I was learning that being B's mother meant making hard calls, meant putting her needs first even while my own wounds hadn't fully healed, meant figuring out how to protect her while still giving her the chance to understand where she came from. It wasn't perfect, probably never would be, but it was genuinely, completely ours.